They've come to take your life on through the dead of night with Chris Burkhardt, right? On Courtside Monday. Yeah, I'm not quitting my day job. I'm definitely not a rocker or a singer, but it did sound good. It fit. Welcome into Courtside Monday. Chris Burkhardt here with you. Thanks for tuning in. Got plenty of Blazer talk to get to. I'll have a special guest joining me here in the second segment as well. You guys know him. He's been around before, but now he's freed up and he's like, "Hey, Burkhardt, I need to come in. We need to talk." And I said, "Okay, absolutely." But let's talk a little Blazer action first, man. There's a lot going on. I opened up the mailbag basically for some questions and see what I got here, and we'll talk about some trade deadlines. I know my guy Peyton, who's going to be joining me. I'm sure he has questions for me. He was already asking me some stuff when he got into the building earlier, and I got to remind this guy. He was asking about radio etiquette. I got to remind him. Sometimes you got to pump the brakes, man. You got to save the good stuff for radio. Don't ask me all the questions and get all the good stuff before we go on air. You want to catch me off guard. That way I stumble and it makes you look better. You got to remember that, Peyton. All right, but there was plenty of stuff going on with the Portland Trailblazers. They're struggling right now, to say the least. They did lose to the Phoenix Suns last night, 116-109, and it's just, oh, man, here we go again. And the wheels aren't really falling off. It's just the Blazers just don't have the talent right now to get through these games. And it's, I don't know, the injury bug is coming through. DeAndre Ayton's not playing. You did get Robert Williams back, which was pretty nice. And you got Donovan Clingan back now, which is pretty nice as well. But there's just a couple things, too, that are just making you kind of scratch your head as to what's going on because the Blazers can't figure it out. I mean, they got boat raced by Memphis a couple weeks ago. We all remember that. They were able to turn it around. They rattle off 3 straight. Things are looking up. Well, yeah, now they've lost what right now, okay? The car is not moving. And it doesn't get any easier. The Blazers have to face the Denver Nuggets on Thursday at home, and then they go on the road to face San Antonio, a team that beat them just a few nights ago at Moda. That was a tight one, but they did get the win. And then they got to go to Dallas, a team that beat them a couple weeks ago at Moda Center. They got to go to Utah, a team that beat them just a few games ago at Moda Center. Oh, and then they get to play Dallas again, as I already said, a team that beat them just a few games ago. So, yeah, it's not getting any easier for your Trailblazers. What you have to try to do is you have to try to find the positive, see where that is, right? What is the silver lining? What is it that you can get excited about and look at and go, okay, I get that. I like that a lot. Well, first off, you got to give kudos to the Blazers young guys. And more specifically, Donovan Clingan, right? It was so nice to see him back in the lineup doing Donovan Clingan things. He is an absolute force. I think he's proving that he can be a true defensive stopper in the long run in this league. And I love seeing that from him. I love seeing his efficiency offensively. I love seeing the fact that him and Robert Williams, both, who's also back from injury, they like to play above the rim. Like, it's so nice to have a center who wants to throw it down, who wants to take a lob pass, right? For some reason, DeAndre Ayton's 7 feet tall, and he likes to take 15-foot jumpers. I like the fact that there's 2 centers that like to pick, and they like to roll hard to the rim, and it makes it a fun basketball game. I like the fact that Toumani Camara, I think, has really cemented himself as one of the best on-ball defenders in the NBA. I like the fact that the three-point shot has been coming around. That's nice to see. I love the fact that Denny Avdia has definitely proven why the Blazers gave up pieces to get him. Everyone thought that Malcolm Brogdon was going to net the Blazers a pick. Instead, they had to tie a pick to him to get him out of town. Why? Well, because they were trying to get Denny Avdia. And Denny Avdia has been pretty good for the Blazers as of late. You look at that game against Phoenix. He's coming off the bench. He's playing that 6-man role. 17 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists. Not a bad night for Denny Avdia. And he's coming out and being pretty consistent with it. So there's some good, but there's also been some bad. Anthony Simons has seen a massive drop statistically and has been struggling to get going. And I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if there's something off the court going on or if he's just in his own head. I'm not going to speculate. I'm only going to talk about the things I know for a fact. And what I know for a fact is he has gone from almost 23 points per game last year to just 17 this year. His assist numbers are down by a solid 1. His rebound numbers are down by a solid 1. He went from shooting 38% last season to shooting 33% this year. Not good. Not good at all for a guy who's supposed to be your number one guy. Really, that's what we are told, and is supposed to buoy his trade value because you want to hitch the wagon to Scoot and Sharp. But then he has a season where everything just tanks. Don't know what the answer is. I would hope that he can figure it out and make that better. I mean, right now, I put this in perspective, and I know it's a small sample size, right? He's 23 games in, and if he makes a couple shots, he'll bounce closer to his career average. His career average from beyond the arc is 38%. But right now at 32.9, what I'm about to say is going to sound really weird. But that is a lower percentage than Al-Farouq Aminu ever shot as a member of the Portland Trailblazers. First year as a Blazer, he shot 36% from the beyond the arc. Then he shot 33, getting mighty close, because right now Ant's at 32.9, so technically lower, right? Then he shot 36, 34. Your number one scorer, the guy who's supposed to be your best three-point shooter, shooting worse than Al-Farouq Aminu. And I'm not knocking Al-Farouq Aminu. I'm just knowing that everyone hated when he shot three balls. Like, oh, gosh, here we go again. So Ant's got to figure that out. But he's not the only one when we talk about the bad, because the guy who's supposed to be, the next best player on the team outside of Ant, also seeing a massive downtick in his production. Jeremy Grant, gone from 21 points per game last year to 16.1 this year. Not great. He's taking fewer shots right now. He's taking 13 compared to 15 the year prior. 3-point percentage is dipped, but it's still a very respectable 38. But again, the production point-wise just isn't there. And it's weird. Like, I don't know the reason. Hard to wrap your head around. But you would wish the Blazers could figure that out. Because when your two best players have seen a combined drop in their production of 12 points per game, hard to win games, right? The other bad has been DeAndre Ayton, because he's had his ups, he's had his downs. He's had moments where he's looked good, but then he's had moments where he gets pulled 2 minutes into the third quarter for not having good spirit, as Coach Billups put it. Didn't like his spirit, pulled him out of the game. There's been many a play where he's not hustling, and it's leading to other points for the other team. So again, there's been good, but there has been bad. I think you got to try to do our best to focus on the good, because I still think there's a bright future with some of these players they have. What's really interesting, though, now as the trade windows open up and the trade deadline starts to come into view, is what the Blazers do in the long run. It's absolutely pivotal to trade some of these vets to open up the doors and let those young guys get on the floor, right? And how you navigate those waters is going to it's going to set you on the right course, or you're going to be the Titanic. And that's your two options, right? So Jeremy Grant, probably the most likely Blazer to be traded, if you're asking me right now what my gut feeling is. Because I think you look at him, and I like Jeremy Grant, even with the downtick in his points. I like Jeremy Grant. I think he's a very good basketball player, very good scorer. The problem right now in Portland is he's the number 2, if not number 1 option on certain nights. You make him the number 4 guy on a championship, contender or playoff contender. He's perfect role. Perfect role. I'll take the 16 points per game from that and the 38% 3-point shooting. There's a lot of teams who are going to call about him. The Lakers are probably finding ways to get in on that. They were rumored to be attached to him in the offseason. Plenty of teams could use a Jeremy Grant. I mean, send Jeremy Grant back to OKC, give them a shooter, pair with all that defense. I can see where that makes sense, right? But, there are reports that the Blazers have lowered their asking price. I don't necessarily think the asking price has been lowered. I think that it maybe wasn't as high as we all thought. Also, these are negotiations, my friends. You want one price, they want another. You talk, you meet in the middle. Have you not watched an episode of Pawn Stars? You know how these work. I think that's worth 100. Yeah, I'll give you 5. Oh, come on. You can give me 90, right? I'll give you 15. Okay. How about 70? 25. Final offer. Oh, you can't give me 50? I'll give you 40. Not a cent more. Deal. You met in the middle, made a deal. That's how this works. So we'll see what Jeremy Grant garners. Anthony Simons, same thing, though. The downtick in production. I don't know if that necessarily turns people off, though. I think there's still value in him because get him to a team like Orlando, right? Who I think is just a logical fit. The only unfortunate part about Orlando is that the injuries for them have kind of derailed them, right? Bencaro, Wagner, people hurt. But you got Anthony Black, who's been great. And you can slot Ant back into his much more natural 2 spot. Let him play 2 guard. I still struggle to understand why they have been putting him into the position of point guard where the ball is in his hand constantly when over the last few years he has been one of the best catch and shoot guys in the league. Can't catch and shoot if you already have the ball in your hand. You can't catch it, right? Like, get him where he can succeed. So I think teams like Orlando will come calling. And then the last piece there is DeAndre Ayton. And then, Robert Williams is going to be the center that gets all the calls, but I don't necessarily think there's a reason to move off of him. If he is healthy, he's your backup to Donovan Clingan all day long. And I know he's talented enough to be a starter, but he's been a backup center his entire career, and it just makes sense. DeAndre Ayton, though, where does he go? Who's going to garner interest in him? I thought it made sense for New Orleans for a minute, but now that team's about to blow itself up, so they're not going to go make a move for DA. They're going to try to get off all those contracts. I don't know if there's a market for DA right now. Do you want a center being paid $30 million a year who gets pulled out because he has a lack of spirit, right? And he struggles? It's going to be really, really interesting to see how Joe Cronin navigates all of this. All right, we're going to take a quick break here on Courtside Monday. If you want to join the conversation, 503-248-0620 is the telephone number. You go to youtube.com, type in Rip City Radio 620. We'll pop right up, and you can send your comments and questions there. And, of course, Chris J. Burkhardt is the name on social media. When we come back, I'll be joined by friend of the show, Peyton Davis, and he's going to ask me some questions. I know he has some. Oliver Maroney's going to text me. I wouldn't move Grant. Oliver, you don't know what you're talking about. You know what? I'm going to have to get you on this show so you can put your money where your mouth is. I don't even know what that means. I like you too much to really be mad at you. I would definitely move Grant right now. Guess what? I think there's a courtside coming up in January. Might be our next one. You're going to come join me. But don't go anywhere. Plenty of more Blazer talk coming up after the break here on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. Welcome back into Courtside Monday. Chris Burkhardt here with you. You can follow me on social at Chris J. Burkhardt. Big shout out to my buddy Oliver Maroney. All you Scoop fans from back in the day will remember him. He's been around the block a few times. He knows what he's talking about. I appreciate the fact that he's listening to me right now, but now he's blowing up my phone. He's playing a game of distraction. He's like, what can I text to Burkhardt that's going to throw him off of his game here live on radio? He's not a fan of Traden Grant. Oh, all
The
right.
answer is nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing can
Whoa,
throw you
whoa,
off.
whoa. I didn't even introduce you yet. The voice of God can't just come in like that.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good. You're good. But Oliver, I'm going to send you the courtside schedule. We're going to get you on this bad boy. But that was the voice over there of my friend Peyton Davis, who's back on the show. The schedule's freed up. How are things, Peyton?
Things are good as always. I appreciate it. Allowing me to come on here. I know I hate your phone as much as anybody else, so I appreciate you
Hey.
answering my texts and calls. So
Hey,
thanks.
I get it. It works. I'm like, I got to get him on. He's being too kind. We'll go talk sports. But what do you got for me today? I know you got some questions. I got some questions for you. But right now, let's talk Jeremy Grant. Since Oliver is over here saying he doesn't like trading him, what are your thoughts on Grant? Because the first thing you asked me when you got in the building was, is it true? I've seen those reports that the Blazers have lowered their asking price, and I don't know if you were asking that because A, you wanted a lot for him, or B, you like him and you don't want him to go. So what are your thoughts on Jeremy Grant and what the Blazers need to do with this roster?
Yeah. It's interesting because I do like Jeremy Grant. I think at the end of the day, he is a savvy veteran who can, at the end of the day, our team or the Blazers are full of young guys, and I think that he allows for some just, um, prowess, stoicism. He's very calm and collected, and I like that. I thought that originally he would kind of fit our timeline, but obviously as we get closer to that, trade deadline and trade talks, that doesn't seem to be, where the Blazers' heads at, But like I said, in my heart of hearts, I think that I really do like Jeremy Grant, and I'd love for him to stay, but don't know if he fits our timeline.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do. The contract is one big, but the contract is not that bad right now, all things considered. I mean, when he signed it, it looked hefty, but you had to
Yeah.
understand that salary cap's going to go up, and as it does, that contract looks better and better at the end of the day. It was like another one I told people about was like Yusuf Nurkic, right? Like, he goes out and he gets 18 mil, oh my gosh, that's such a massive overpay for Yusuf Nurkic. I'm like, I tried to explain to people here. I was like, okay, Yusuf Nurkic is probably, honestly, when you put him up against the other starting centers in the league, probably 14th, 15th best starting center. Okay. And then you look at how much he's getting paid. He's about the 14th, 15th highest paid center in the
Yeah.
league. So he's paid pretty much in line with his talent. And when you look at the production that DA's given you at 30 mil a year, yeah, I like the near double-double I'm getting from Yusuf Nurkic at $18 million a year. Oh, yeah, and he's putting up a double-double when he's playing with Devin Booker and Bradley Beal and Kevin Durant. So points are hard to come by. He's up and down. I get it, but so is DeAndre Ayton. I'll take up and down for $12 million cheaper. I like the Bosnian Beast, too. It's an objectively awesome nickname. So
It is.
there's a lot going on here. What are your thoughts on Ayton, though? I know you're a little worried about him. You're in the camp where you want him to work out, aren't you?
I want him to work out for somebody else. It's one of those things where with kind of going back to Yusuf Nurkic, he gets put on this kind of like pedestal of like shacked in a fool moments, where like that's kind of why I feel a lot of people think he's overpaid is he gets so many
Right.
shacked in a fool moments, especially playing, on the side of Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker.
Right.
But in terms of DeAndre Ayton, it's never a great sign for me to have your head coach come out and say he didn't play almost a full half because of effort issues or attitude issues. And as a starting center making, 30 mil, like you talked about, the Blazers have money to spend. But at the end of the day, there's Chad had kind of talked about this earlier. We have been playing Denny a little bit more at the 5, which I've really liked. But you look at Denny's production for about 14 mil a year, just under that actually. And I like that significantly more coming from a guy like that. Just it's hard for me to, watch DA really work and watch him take as many 15-footers like you kind of talked about as you
Right.
can. We have two other guys that are defensive centers, in the
Both
paint playing above
defensive
the rim.
centers, they both roll hard to the rim, which is what I like because
Mhm.
Ayton likes to do that roll and then catch and shoot. As we're both
Yeah.
Klingon and Robert Williams more specifically love to roll and then get to the rim
Yeah.
and play up above it. I mean, you saw in the game against the Suns. I mean, both Klingon and Rob the receiving ends of a quick lob to the basket. So a lob for Rob, just hook it to my
I like
veins.
that. I like
Hook it
that.
to my veins. All right, let's ask you some questions, and I'm going to answer them as well. But we did get a few of them as I proposed this today.
I
But
like it. Hit me.
shout out to Jesse, Blazer fan. He's in our Trailcasters, one of these podcasts I record once per year. I know my podcast co-host is listening. That's a dig at him for not wanting to record lately. But he asked, here's a question and a good springboard. Essentially, 3 full seasons in now, what are your grades for Joe Cronin? And does he deserve to be in control for all of 24-25? I will tell you my piece on Joe Cronin
Do it.
after I hear yours. What do you
All right.
think of Joe Cronin?
You know what? I think that coming into the Joe Cronin era, I had a real sour taste in my mouth, honestly. And so that gave Joe Cronin a little bit of like this buffer of I still have a sour taste in my mouth. So moves that he made were already going to have sort of a negative connotation in my mind.
Uh-huh.
Whereas really looking back at it, like you had talked about, Denny looks like a great piece right now, moving off of Malcolm Brogdon, who is, didn't play for a long time for the Wizards, now is getting some run. But, talk about a guy that didn't fit our timeline. Malcolm Brogdon was
Right.
that, So really, if I had to give a grade, oh man. So far, I mean, it looks like I'm going to say B, and I know that's an easy answer,
Yeah.
but right now, like we are still kind of in this limbo of having a lot of guard pieces that need to play. And,
Right.
we see this stint from Scoot where as soon as you have two guys that are healthy and want to roll to the rim hard, you see what he can do passing the ball wise, playmaking. But I really just, I feel like we're still in this limbo of what to do with all our pieces we have. And so that makes it hard to, I really want to see where we go with that under Joe Cronin.
Yeah, I think a B minus is fair, and it's like a midterm grade. Like you still got to ace the final, and you got
Yeah.
a chance of getting an A. Here's the thing with Joe. I like the moves he's made. First off, I think most Blazer fans will love the fact that in the unfortunate having to trade Damian Lillard, he did stick it to Miami, which is great. They needed that one.
Yeah.
Right. And Damian Lillard, the whole Milwaukee thing looks like it might be starting to work out. So kudos to him. Then you end up, like I said, there was a lot of moving parts, and he didn't give up. I mean, he gets off of Nurkic, gets Ayton in here, which you like at first, and then okay, maybe that's not going to work so much. That's going to be hard to get off of. You get Drew Holiday, you send him to Boston to gift them a championship. You get Malcolm Brogdon in that deal. We're sold the bill that's going to turn into a pick or something, but you had to attach a pick to get Denny. I do like Denny, so I like that move. But also, you can give him a good grade for the draft, right? Because you're like, okay, I think a lot of Blazer fans like Shaedon Sharp. I think a lot of fans like Donovan Klingon. And there's a lot of fans rooting for Scoot Henderson, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, at least the narrative on two of those guys, and you could stretch it to Scoot as well, but it's like, yeah, we didn't think they were going to fall to us, but they were there and they were available. Okay, well, so you're just sitting there at 7. Okay, hopefully someone falls. Like, oh, he fell. Oh, we're gonna get him. He kind of fell in our lap. So
Yeah.
did you draft well, or did these guys just fall in your lap? And that's part of that too. But I also think you cannot undersell some really good things he's done. Okay, like Neil Olshey. As much as people dog Neil Olshey, like he makes the trade with Denver. And that was to get picks, and like Yusuf Nurkic was a throw-in, but he convinced him that, hey, give me Nurk. I want Nurk, and Nurk was great for Portland. I mean, we had Nurk fever. I mean, there's the sign.
We did.
The sign over there that I changed to Burke fever, but Nurk fever was a thing, right? And that was a good thing that Neil did. Well, at the same time, I mean, it's easy to say now, but when you're wheeling and dealing and the Suns are getting off DeAndre Ayton, which is what they wanted to do, you're like, yeah, give me that second round pick to Monty Kamara too. Oh, you want my second round pick? Yeah, I'll give you 2. Not a problem. I'll give you 2. And now they're all acting like, oh yeah, everyone loved him. It was really hard to get it. He was a second round pick. Like, if he was really hard to grab, people would have drafted him sooner. If we're going to
Mhm.
be honest.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I think there was potential there, but he has blown through his glass ceiling. It's been phenomenal, right? So you got to give Joe credit for that.
Yeah.
But so I would say like it's a B, but in the fact this is more like you know, this is not a real grade. This is more of the progress report that your mom gets in the mail midway
Yeah.
through the school year,
Just
right?
took the midterm.
Yep, you gotta ace everything else.
Uh-huh.
There's still a very good. If you don't turn in the rest of your homework, you're failing this class.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like so there's still remains to be seen what goes on here because I think there's 3 very very movable assets for this team, and 4 names that are going to garner interest because like Robert Williams is a massively tradable asset.
Yep.
So is Jeremy. So is Ant. Aiton is a name that they're going to try to move. So there's your 4 names. How you get on the other side of that is going to say a lot about Joe. So
Absolutely.
yeah, that's a B minus. You're going to be. I get it. I think it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
All right, another question going to Twitter this time. Let's see. Brandon Torville. He says, I'm trying not to get worried about Scoot, but I'm finding it harder and harder. Obviously, coming into the league, the front office felt it was more of a finished product than he was. Can we expect him to be more on a Simons type timeline where we don't see a big jump till year 3 or 4? So what's your gut telling you on Scoot?
Oh man, this is another tough one. My gut tells me to hold on to faith a little bit here. I loved when, everything he showed when he was at the Ignite team was, attack the rim, elevate, do those things. And like you said, or like the question kind of states, we thought we were getting a little bit more of a finished product. But once again, I look back to our room full of guards where we have 3, which is tough for me to say, ball dominant guards, and volume scores in Anthony and Shaden both. So as much as I do see, it's difficult to see where Scoot is right now. He's not showing a ton of promise and he's a little bit up and down and those kind of things. Once again, we also have a loaded locker room right now of question marks. And like you said, 4 tradable assets that are really hot commodities, or 3 that are.
Right.
But I would say hold on to that a little bit. And also, Blazers' track record is development takes a little bit longer in Portland. I think you don't usually see those 1-year comeback, massive jump type of players. I mean, look at an Anthony.
It took Ant time. I mean,
ton of time.
and here's the thing too. Like Ant has blossomed, right? And right now he's having a downtick in the numbers. We've talked about that. But the last 2 years, he was averaging over 20 points per game, 5 assists. Like he was a very, very good basketball player. Now, to me, I don't think you ever wanted him to like. Your team was never going to find success if he's your number 1 guy. But he's a good player, right?
Yeah.
Well, look at his second year in the league when he was 20 years old. He played 70 games that year. Granted, he was backing up C.J. McCollum and Damian Lillard, but he averaged 20 minutes per game. He averaged 8.3 points and 1.4 assists. Okay. Well, Scoot Henderson, I think people forget, is just 20 years old.
Yeah.
He doesn't turn 21 until February. He can't drink yet.
Yeah.
He's playing 25 minutes per night. He's at 10 points per game and 5.1 assists. So it's like he's at a better production than Ant was. Yes, he's playing 5 more minutes, but statistically, he's sitting there at better than Ant was at the same age, on the same team, playing the same position, right? And he's doing pretty good. So in his per 36s this year, 15 points per game, 7.1 assists for his per 36s, which is granted that's, a guesstimate of what it would be if he played 36 minutes per night.
Yeah.
At the same time, I mean, Anthony Simons was at 14.4 points and 2.4 assists his year 2 in the league when he was just 20 years old. So again, some of these guys do take time. Sometimes these guys come out and they are just good from day 1.
Yeah.
Scoot, I feel like you can give just a little bit of the benefit, just being a 20-year-old playing a game where it's hard to go from being you are basically the most explosive guy on the court everywhere you go.
Yeah.
and now you're in the
The
NBA.
talent level,
You're just
it changes.
you're just another guy
ridiculous.
until
Yeah.
until
Yeah.
and you got to work. You got to work to find who you are to
Yeah.
separate yourself again. So I've said this before with Scoot, and it is that I am not panicking. I am not sounding the alarm,
No.
but I am well aware of where the panic button is, and
Oh,
my hand,
100%.
my hand can go to it very quickly if need be.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And it's and
that's
you
how I
think
feel at Scoot.
and you think about, other things too. It's like we've done this a couple times in a row. Anthony we drafted when he was what, 19, 18?
Yeah.
And now you have Shaden who is just freshly 21, and you have Scoot who is 20, going to be freshly 21.
These are the young
Young
Blazers,
guys.
baby.
These are and imagine, so many people, I don't know if you can remember what, the emotional and mental maturity of a 20-year-old. But once again, playing against grown men, when you have a guy like a Dalton Connect, for example, who's coming into the league at 23, 24, played 4 full years of college, a savvy individual coming in with a lot of college experience, they're going to look drastically different, coming onto an NBA roster. And so
Yeah.
I think that seeing that difference and having that, once again, that's where my mind goes. This guy's a kid. He's a kid.
Yeah. What about, and we'll get to Scoot in a second, more Scoot here in a second, but what about Shaden Sharp? Because Brandon goes back and has another question about Sharp, says flashes of greatness, but I really want to see more consistency. His handle still needs some work. That's for sure. And the turnovers are aggravating. I really would love to see him turn up the defensive intensity like 2 more often. A lot of work on that still. So what are your thoughts on Sharp? Because Sharp's again, he's had flashes.
Yes.
The consistency has been a little bit
I'm going to take this
inconsistent.
in quick steps. So first things first, we just talked about how young he is. He's trying to find his spot in the rotation. I know that obviously the organization and everybody in the, every Blazers fan is saying, go shoot, go score, go do, every time he touches the ball, it's so fluid. I totally agree. His handle does definitely need some work. It's more just strength with the ball. He is when he gets in the air, he is like floating almost, and he likes to have a lot of finesse when he's playing. And that kind of just comes with being soft with the basketball right now. So that obviously, like it says, needs some work. But currently, it looks like he is trying to do too much in terms of he's trying to play make while also going and getting 30 like we know he can. He did it back-to-back nights against Minnesota, or it was against Minnesota and then I think Atlanta. But he had 30 back-to-back nights in that 3-game win streak, and it was awesome to see. But that was him. He's open, shoot. Go get a bucket, shoot. And so it's hard when you watch him. Sometimes when he really struggles, like the other night when he plays 32 minutes and has 11 points, it's like you can see him, okay, should I pass? Should I score? Should I? And then all of a sudden it's hesitate, not going to be as fluid, not going to work as well. So I think it's more of just a reaction, or, be proactive in, I am the shooting guard of this team. I'm going to shoot. I'm going to score. That is in, like you and I talked about this, the last show,
Right.
talked about this before. It's in the name. Go score. You don't need to go have 6 assists a night. And you've looked great doing it this year so far. So
Yep. And the last question, and it's something we've talked about a little bit, but it's trading Ant might accelerate the timeline, but is that wise at this point? Ant's trade value is low right now, but he's so much better at point guard than Scoot. Should the Blazers just embrace the tank and try to trade some guys like JG, Ant, and Robert Williams? And why you noodle on that one? First off, he is not a better point guard than Scoot. He doesn't facilitate. Ant, he's a shooter, man.
yeah,
And he doesn't create very well either. Like that's why it blows my mind that he's not playing more of a catch and shoot position where he was really good at. Like you compare him to CJ McCollum, right? CJ McCollum during his little prime run in Portland, no one created like that guy.
No.
His ability to dribble, get past the defender, pull it back up, and create that 15-foot jumper and create space to shoot is elite level. Ant doesn't have that.
No.
Catch and shoot guy. And he doesn't pass nearly as well as Scoot. And so, no, I think Scoot is the better pure point guard.
Yeah.
I do think if you can move off of him, though, if you really want to give the keys to Scoot Henderson, do it. Open up the door for him to be the starting point guard.
Absolutely.
And the thing with Scoot, too, man, is like put him in positions to fail a little bit.
Yeah.
I know that sounds weird, but man, if you coddle these guys and put them in positions where they're only going to succeed, it's like a muscle memory type thing, dude. Like you're only going to be good at that one thing that we have coddled you to be good at.
Yeah. And you can only control the controllables, right? You're going to run into a situation eventually where you are going to fail and you've only been, coddled to put in winning situations. So once you get that adversity, you haven't gotten there this whole
Yeah.
time. Once you learn how to
Yeah.
fail, it's
Yeah.
easier.
I'm still high on Sharp.
Yeah.
I'm still moderately above the ground on Scoot. I'm not out. Right now, if you ask me who on this team is untouchable, cannot trade him, I honestly think there's only two names. And I think it's Tamani Kamara and Donovan Clingan.
Yeah.
I mean, I love those two.
I do.
Now, you could convince me that Denny Sharp and Scooter in there too, but gosh, I love Tamani Kamara. I just wish the Blazers were a little better, or the timeline worked out.
Yeah.
Like Jeremy Grant would have been perfect with a prime run of Damian Lillard and a Donovan Clingan type center, or even a DA. And you can't tell me that Tamani Kamara isn't just a great small forward to play next to Dame. Time just didn't work out. Speaking of time, the music's playing. Means it's time to take a break, but don't go anywhere. We'll be back. Peyton Davis is going to stay here. He's going to take over. It's going to be courtside with Peyton Davis before it's all said and done. So don't go anywhere. Plenty more Blazer talk coming up on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. Welcome back into Courtside Monday. A sure sign that Michael Shacker's producing. The metal is on point. It's like if Shacker's ever producing and it's country, like you should probably send help. Like grab your phone, don't call the studio, just call help. Call help. This is Courtside Monday. Chris Burkhardt here with you, Peyton Davis to my left, and Peyton put you on the spot. I've been
Uh-oh.
asking questions and throwing them your way. You got any questions for me? I opened the floor on Twitter and in our Discord, and people asked some questions. I did my best to answer them. So, do you have questions for me?
Well, of course I do. We talked about them a little bit. A lot of them are kind of around the trade assets we have. One of the ones I have though is I actually really like Robert Williams, and I think that he fits our timeline better than DeAndre Ayton does. But I know that he is somebody that people are going to call about, not only because of the type of player he is, but also the contract. And so, if you're receiving a call for Robert Williams, what's your approach to that?
Well, if I'm receiving a call from on Robert Williams, my approach is okay. What's your best offer? And we're going to start there, and then we're going to debate. Because if I'm the Blazers, quite honestly, I see no incentive to move off of him unless it is a they can't say no type package,
Yeah.
right? Now, if you got some team who's like, I am in desperate need of Robert Williams, I'm going to give you my nice young prospect that everyone covets at a position of need for you and 3 first-round picks, okay, I'll take it. I mean, I don't think anyone's giving you 3 first-round picks for the with the injury concerns around Robert Williams.
Oh yeah.
But if they're going to give you marginal assets, right? I mean, if hey, I'm going to give you this prospect that might turn into something.
Yeah.
And this first-round pick that's going to be the 25th overall pick, right? Or you can keep Robert Williams, who might get hurt, but if he stays healthy, is a legit top tier defensive big.
Yeah.
The risk reward on each of those, like there's more risk on this Robert Williams side, right?
Yeah.
But if you weigh him for the reward,
There.
it's always much more heavier on the Robert
Hey,
Williams side.
Yeah. Exactly.
Now, if you're sitting there and like, I'm going to give you a young prospect and 3 first rounders, well, all of a sudden,
Pendulum swings a little
yeah,
bit.
the risk's still there, but the potential swings a little bit. And now
Yeah.
you're like, okay, now we're talking. So yeah, but I don't see the incentive, man, because I think if you're trying to trade off of DeAndre Ayton, which I fully believe they're trying to do, well, then you trade off of Robert Williams too. Well, I don't know if you necessarily need to go back to the well to find a backup center. Like you're right. Like, why go back to square one when you got one of the best backup bigs in the game in Robert Williams? Like, so yeah, I don't see the necessary incentive. To me, it all hinges on DeAndre Ayton, though, because you got to find a way to get off him. Now, if you can't get off him, then maybe you have to entertain Robert Williams being moved a little bit more just to try to continue to build where you want to go. But again, I think it takes a lot to get him because I like what he brings, and the risk reward is worth it for Portland. I also think that's why there's people going to call, and Portland might get one of those can't say no offers because teams are going to look at that as the same way and go, the risk reward there is beneficial.
Yeah. I like that. I like that answer. And I think that's something that I also thought about, right? I mean, the risk reward. When we had made that trade, I thought it was awesome. Obviously, the health concerns were there, but like we had kind of talked about earlier, I've seen, and this is not to discredit DA in any way, but I've seen Scoot thrive more when we have Donovan Clingan and Robert Williams in the lineup, some hard rollers to the basket
Yeah.
instead of a soft middle roll looking for a jump shot. It elevates other people's game when you have a defensive center that can, command the paint. And that's something that I was talking to my dad actually last week. And we were talking about how I actually, I loved the Dame era. It was when I was growing up. It was awesome to see him be such an offensive force, but to watch the Blazers some nights have a real defensive presence with Donovan Clingan and Tamani Kamara and guys that are willing to play defense and rotate, it is so fun to watch for me. It's something that I haven't really seen a lot of in that Dame era. So to watch guys like Tamani and like Donovan Clingan and Robert Williams play really well on the defensive side of the ball is exciting to me. And so that's where that incentive comes in for me for Robert Williams to not give him away unless you get that, insane offer. But with that being said, my second kind of question to that is, what are some teams that you really see that are trade places for DeAndre Ayton? I know we're trying to move off of him, but what does that look like in terms of what are teams looking at? I know we talked about Anthony too with Orlando, but I've been kind of looking at what are some teams that DA could go to.
Yeah, and that's a heck of a question, man. I think, quite honestly, I think you're going to rule out most of the competitors. Like I think, like let's just look at the East for a second. Obviously, Cleveland doesn't need to shake the boat, and
No.
they're pretty good in the big department. Boston doesn't need to shake the boat. New York already invested in Karl Anthony Towns, right? You got the Magic, who they have Paulo, even though he's more a power forward. Wendell Carter's fine. They got pieces there.
Yeah.
They don't need DeAndre Ayton. I think they need a guard who can shoot, which is where Ant comes into play.
Exactly. Yeah.
Miami's not doing a fire sell. Plus,
No.
they got Bam Adebayo. He's a better DeAndre Ayton, right? The Bucks don't need that position. Maybe the Hawks when you start to entertain a little bit if they get in there. The Pacers have already made some moves, but they have Miles Turner. The Bulls, I don't really see it. And then you start getting down to the other teams who could bite the Nets, the Pistons. I mean,
Charlotte, I looked at a little bit.
Charlotte is. I was going to get there. Charlotte is the one that I think makes sense because I don't think LaMelo's had a great center to play with.
Me neither.
And I think that you could get pretty good use out of Ayton in that offense. I would still like to see him play above the rim more for LaMelo. But I think if I'm looking through teams in the East, that would make sense.
Yeah.
I think Charlotte makes sense. I also think, like you look at teams like the Wizards, they're just terrible. The Raptors are treading water. The Sixers are massively struggling right now. But Charlotte is a team but Charlotte is a team that is still trying to figure out kind of what road they're going to take.
Yeah.
And I think Ayton could kind of help them take that path to where they think they're going to get better. Like if I'm Portland, I'm not like, quite frankly, let's be completely honest here. If you didn't have Robert Williams and Donovan Clingan on this roster, I personally am not clamoring to move off of DeAndre Ayton.
No.
However, I got Donovan Clingan now, and I want him to be my center.
Absolutely.
That's why I'm. But so the Charlotte makes sense there. Now, if you look at the West, Thunder don't need that position. Memphis doesn't need that position. The Rockets, I'm not touching that because they're playing so well right now. Dallas is almost an intriguing fit style wise to me, but that asset wise, not going to happen. Nuggets don't need him. Suns ain't touching him.
Nope.
Warriors, I don't even think where the trade talks begin. Minnesota, don't need him.
Yeah.
So then you start getting down to the Clippers, the Lakers. So there's a limited market for him right now. The Pelicans made sense until that team blew up.
Talk about a fire sale.
All right. The music means it's time to go. Peyton, thank you as always, my friend. You're always welcome back. Chris Burkhardt here. I'll be back with you on Thursday as the Blazers take on the Nuggets. Blazers game day at 5 o'clock right here on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio. Until next time when I get Oliver Maroney on, Rip City, I love you.